Welcome to Cinemondo Shots. This is where we take a piece of paper out of a hat that's got the name of a movie or a TV show or an actor or director or something like that, and we mix them all up, and none of us knows what the other ones wrote in there. And who wants to do it?
And it shows sometimes.
And it really shows. Yeah.
And at 10 minutes, we cut it off, and the person talking has to take
Is this product placement?
We're not being sponsored. I wish we were.
By the way, that's Kathy. Burke. Mark. Hat.
Hat. What? You pulled out the hat this time.
Oh, okay.
And we
You
have
do it.
10 minutes, and at the end of the 10 minutes, we hear the Wilhelm scream, which tells us to stop.
Okay. 10 minutes of discussing a surprise.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I got it.
Oh, no. A talking cat?
Barry Lyndon.
Barry
Oh,
Lyndon.
Barry Lyndon. Okay.
Wow, okay.
Start. All right. Who wants to start with Barry Lyndon? I'll go. You want me to start? I'll start.
Cricket.
Since I wrote it, that was my suggestion.
He wrote
Barry
the
Lyndon,
film.
of course, is the
Ryan O'Neal.
it's Ryan O'Neal's, directed by Stanley Kubrick. It's a really amazing film that a lot of people think they might not like because it seems like it might be boring, and it's a very long movie, and it's also got a lot of long Kubrickian lingering shots. It seems like that might be like a recipe for boredom and disaster, but it's actually I've watched it so many times. I never get bored with this movie.
I only saw it like a couple times a long time ago, but I've always wanted to watch it again because it seems to be having a new appreciation these days.
It's just stunning. It's an incredible movie. It's a work of art.
I have to see it again because I saw it way back and thought it was boring. But I was like, what's going on here? Let's get to the car chases, for God's sake.
Before you had the refined taste of film that you
Exactly.
have today.
No, I got my monocle and all. But and Marissa Berenson's in it, right? Isn't she also the lead gal?
Who's the love interest?
You're going to have to look that up. There's
She was like a big thing in the 70s. Anyway,
She's a big thing.
she was like a famous model.
So what's the plot of Barry Lyndon?
Well, it's a young man's rise and fall. Basically, he goes through
Back in the day.
back in the it's the French the fancy French times where everybody wore powder and wigs and tons of perfume because everybody was so filthy and diseased.
Right.
They probably smelled awful, but they covered it
And
all up with
rouge.
makeup and wigs. But it's got that it's a period film, of course, but it's just so beautifully shot. And one of the things that everybody talks about this film is the way Kubrick shot it. He wanted it to appear to have been shot with available light, and so a lot of the scenes, he had lenses, I think, designed, or he was using these lenses that were used by NASA. And
Wow.
there was a gallery, an art gallery, the LA County Museum, that had a show of a Kubrick show that had a lot of props and sets and designs and things related to Stanley Kubrick. And one of the things they had was his lenses. They had a whole array of the lenses he used, and these giant glass lenses that were so fast that they could film in low light. And that was kind of an innovative thing for him to do. He would put candles on the table and light the scenes with the candles in the shot. Wow. And the lenses were so good that they were able to take in a lot of light. So he was able to light with available light. I think it's been brought out in recent years that there was some artificial light and a few, fills and things like that.
Lies.
But for the most part, you get the feeling that it's lit by the light. And a lot of times you see these old films that take place in the old times, and there's just light coming from somewhere,
Yeah.
And, even in caves, in
Sure,
old temples and things like Egyptian tombs and stuff, they're lit. They're brightly lit, and you're like, "Where's that light coming from?" They're expecting us to believe it's all coming from this one lantern or a
You
torch.
got to see it.
You got to see it. Well,
Yeah.
I think later in like a lot of TV shows recently, like I'll think Walking Dead and some other. It's very dark. Like I can't even watch what the hell's
I know,
going
I'm like-
on.
Right.
So somewhere in between is where you want to be.
Yeah.
But this one was lit in a way that makes you feel like, okay, that's what it must have looked like in those days when everything really was lit with candles. Mm-hmm. And the only light you had, only time the room was lit up and illuminated was when sunlight was coming through the windows. And it was pre-digital, so the skies are really the skies. There's no sky replacement or any set, digital set extensions or anything like that. The sets were built, the locations were constructed out of wood and painted, and there's a few scenes in it, there's quite a few scenes where the sky is just gorgeous, and they waited days and days. That was the way you did it back in those days to make films. To have a sky the way you wanted the sky to look, and without any, jet contrails.
Well, he was obviously a perfectionist too. So you factor that in. It's like, I'm sure it was a long shoot.
Yeah, from all accounts, it was a nightmare to work on this film.
Yeah.
So what was it about? So Ryan O'Neal is who?
Barry Lyndon.
And he is?
He's a young. He's a young man at the beginning of the film.
Is he royalty?
He's kind of a
peasant.
He wants to be. Yeah, he's kind of a peasant type guy, and he kind of aspires to greatness.
Okay.
He gets involved in the war, and he leaves. He takes off, and he gets himself into trouble, and he gets in and out of trouble. He hooks up with these people who are kind of phonies, these sort of con men, and he gets involved in these different tricks and schemes to make money playing cards, and he eventually gets himself into a position where he is sort of a dandy, but horrible things happen to him.
It's Kubrick after all.
Yeah, it's dark. It has a downfall as well.
Doesn't he marry a wealthy, or maybe even like a royalty of some sort?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
Well, there's a kid in it, little Lord Bullingdon, that is a great scene.
I know people with French bulldogs named Lord Bullingdon.
But there's so much to it. There's so many little stories that go in where there's wars and there's history in it, and he meets people during this time of his life and that time. It's an epic,
right?
So it goes through different times of his life and the ups and downs. And to me, it's a totally fascinating film.
Is it fascinating because of the Kubrick directing it, or is it the story that Because what's the reason you go, I can watch this one over and over again? Because it's a 3-hour epic. Those are tough to watch over and over again.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. The acting is great. The costuming and the sets and everything, the production design is all beautiful. But the story is compelling. It pulls you in. This. And it's one of those things where you're like, no, don't do that. You're making a bad decision. That's a bad thing to do. Don't do that. You're going to get yourself in even deeper trouble.
Yeah.
And you watch him go into these situations that are going to turn out bad for him, and make these choices and go down these paths. Like, don't do it. And then these things happen to him. Like, there's one scene where he's robbed by these really polite highwaymen, that come out and say, please put your hands over your head, and very politely robbed. And
Polite thieves.
But it's got so many little sequences in it. The music is really good. Of course, it's Kubrick, who loved music and loved the way music worked within films and set the mood. And Ryan O'Neal is great, but some people said his performance is flat, which it kind of is. But I think it works in the context of who he is.
Was it supposed to be flat?
Yeah.
Because Ryan O'Neal was a big, huge star early 70s.
Love Story.
Yeah, and of course, what's the one with
Paper Moon?
Paper Moon, which is a
Moon's
great
great.
film.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
And he's he's comic in that.
Right.
But in this one, he's just very docile. He's sort of, in some ways, puts himself on these paths, and then you see what happens to him. And interestingly, there's a narrator on the film. The film is narrated.
He's not the narrator? Is he narrating his own story?
I don't think
Is
so.
Third
There's
person?
some omniscient
The author's
God.
voice.
William Thackeray or whatever his name.
But
Lord Bullingdon.
Yeah.
but what's funny about it is that the narration sometimes will tell you what you're about to see.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. It's like, well, this is the part of the story where Barry loses everything. So what's interesting about that is that you're watching it knowing, something bad is going to happen.
Classic Stephen King device.
Yeah, it's a
It
Stephen
was
King.
the last time they were seen alive, and then he continues. So you're like, what?
Yeah. Stephen King does that in stories
All
where
the time.
he'll start a chapter and say this was the last hour of so and so's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the film does that, and it works. You would think that it would be like a spoiler, but it really works
It's
in the
an
film.
anticipation. It kind of gives you an anticipation, like, what's going to happen here, or how's it going to happen?
Yeah, how is it going to happen, and when? And you're just watching this poor guy. Like, he's not very smart. He's not smart enough to make it legitimately.
And that was made in 75, maybe 74. I think
Could be.
after Clockwork Orange. So I try to think of the chronology.
classic.
Now, Mark,
Like,
you're putting me on the spot.
I think it was 2001.
I think it is.
How dare
Clockwork
you.
Orange, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
Then after that was Full Metal Jacket. No,
No, I think
what
he
was it?
did something else between there, but
Shining. The Shining.
The Shining, yeah.
1980. The Shining.
Was
Full
there
Metal
something else?
Jacket and then Eyes Wide Shut were the last two, right?
Right.
Oh, 2001.
2001 was
68.
before.
Yeah.
Okay, before Lyndon.
Can you imagine that was Dr. Strangelove,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
2001, Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining, and Wilhelm screaming.
Was the Wilhelm scream in any Kubrick film? I don't think he did that.
I see Kubrick avoiding that.
Room
Yeah.
237.
All right,
All right.
bottoms
Highland
up.
Park.
Mark's 50th shot of the day. So good.
That's
Smooth.
Yeah.
right. Very well done.
What was Jackie Gleason's? What was his?
What was his what?
Did he drink a shot? And never mind. Anyway.
And away we go.
We've had a few
And away
shots
we
by
go.
now.
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
it.
remember.
And away we go. The June Taylor Dancers, ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
Anyway.
that was fun. Barry Lyndon, I got to see it. I want to see it
Yeah,
again.
I
now.
wanted to see that again. That's a good impetus.
See it again. Sit down and start watching it. It starts out slow, but you will be pulled in.
Okay.
It's the music is, and just look at how beautiful. Every shot is like a painting, and I think that was the idea. He wanted it to look like a painting in the Louvre. You know, classic painting.
All right. Well, that's
Okay.
it for another episode.
Another episode.
Cinemondo Shots.
Shot.
Bye.
Cinemondo signing out.